The twilight sky was painted in shades of deep indigo and soft violet when the vintage steam train pulled into the station of stars. The platform was quiet, illuminated by the gentle glow of brass lanterns that hung from the wooden rafters. Warm light spilled from the train's arched windows, casting a golden hue onto the polished stone floor. The little bear cub, with his fluffy brown fur, adjusted his cozy knitted green scarf against the cool evening breeze. On his head sat a tiny traveler's cap, slightly tilted to one side. He held a small brass ticket in his paws, his dark eyes wide with quiet wonder as he stepped toward the open carriage door. The conductor, a friendly old owl wearing a blue vest and spectacles, gave a soft nod and welcomed him aboard. The steps were made of dark, polished mahogany, and as the little bear climbed them, he felt a wave of comforting warmth wash over him from inside the train. The interior of the carriage was the epitome of cozy comfort. Deep green velvet seats lined the walls, and small wooden tables sat beneath each window, illuminated by tiny brass reading lamps that cast a soft, ambient glow. A gentle fire crackled in a small hearth at the end of the carriage, sending the soothing scent of cedar wood through the air. The little bear found his compartment, slid the heavy wooden door shut, and climbed onto the plush seat. He placed his small satchel beside him and looked out the window. The station outside was beginning to fade into a soft, dreamlike mist. The train gave a gentle, rhythmic shudder, and with a soft hiss of steam, it began to slide away from the platform. The wheels turned slowly at first, making a steady click-clack, click-clack sound against the tracks. The station lights dwindled in the distance, resembling tiny golden fireflies scattered across the dark landscape. The train picked up speed, but it remained a slow, steady, comforting pace, rocking the little bear gently side to side. He leaned his head against the soft velvet cushion of his seat, feeling the warmth of the carriage envelop him. Outside, the world was transitionary, shifting from the busy waking hours into the quiet realms of the night. The train climbed a gentle incline, winding its way through the outskirts of the waking world, where the distant houses had their lights turned off one by one. A gentle mist began to roll across the hills, softening the edges of the trees and fields. The air inside the carriage was perfectly warm, and the little bear watched as small droplets of condensation began to form on the corners of the window pane. He reached out a paw and drew a small, smiling face in the fog, feeling a sense of peace settle deep into his chest. The rhythmic motion of the train was like a cradle, whispering to him that it was time to let go of the day's thoughts. As the train journeyed further, the tracks led into the forest of whispering pines. The tall, ancient trees stood like silent guardians under the starry sky, their branches draped in soft moss. The train wound through the forest path, its headlight casting a long beam of golden light through the dense foliage. The sound of the wind blowing through the pine needles was like a soft lullaby, rising and falling in time with the train's rhythmic chugging. The little bear opened his window just a crack, allowing the fresh, cool scent of pine and damp earth to fill his compartment. The cool night air mixed with the warmth of the carriage, creating a refreshing breeze that tickled his nose. He could hear the distant, gentle hooting of an owl and the soft rustle of woodland creatures settling down for the night. The steam from the train's engine drifted lazily upward, weaving through the tree branches like silver ribbons. The train crossed a small wooden bridge over a bubbling stream, the sound of the water rushing over smooth stones adding a melodic note to the night's symphony. The little bear pulled his knitted green scarf a bit closer around his neck, feeling completely safe and warm in his quiet wooden sanctuary. The forest eventually began to thin, opening up to a vast, breathtaking expanse known as the Sea of Stardust. The train ran along a track that seemed to float just above the surface of a perfectly still, dark violet lake. The water reflected the sky so clearly that it felt as if the train were flying through the cosmos itself. Thousands of tiny, glowing stars seemed to float in the water, rippling gently whenever the train passed by. The little bear pressed his nose against the cool glass, looking down in amazement at the constellations shimmering beneath him. A soft, silver light bathed the entire carriage, reflecting off the polished wood and green velvet. In the distance, a gentle school of luminescent fish leapt from the water, their scales glowing with soft pastel colors before they splashed back into the starry depths. The sound of the train on this floating track was softer, a muted, rhythmic thrumming that was incredibly soothing. The little bear watched the ripples spread across the water's surface, slowly fading away into the darkness. The vastness of the stardust sea made him feel small, but in the most peaceful way possible, as if he were a tiny, cared-for part of a grand, quiet universe. Leaving the stardust sea behind, the train entered the meadows of whispering lavender. The landscape stretched out as far as the eye could see, filled with rolling hills of deep purple flowers. A gentle, warm breeze swept across the meadows, creating long waves that looked like a violet ocean under the moonlight. The scent of lavender was rich and sweet, carried through the air and seeping into the carriage through the ventilation. It was a deeply relaxing scent, one that made the little bear's eyelids feel heavy and warm. He watched a family of deer standing in the meadow, their coats silvered by the moon as they watched the train pass with calm, curious eyes. The train's headlights swept across the lavender fields, revealing path after path of soft, winding trails where the wild rabbits had made their homes. The steam rising from the locomotive was now tinged with the scent of lavender and honey, leaving a trail of sweet-smelling mist behind it. The little bear adjusted his traveler's cap, letting his eyes close for just a moment, enjoying the soothing fragrance and the endless, gentle rocking. Every breath he took was filled with the calming aroma, washing away the last remnants of daylight tension. The train began to climb once more, ascending into the pass of the Crystal Mountains. The air outside grew colder, and soon, soft, fluffy snowflakes began to drift lazily from the sky. They landed gently on the train windows, melting into intricate water patterns. The mountains themselves were made of a translucent, crystalline stone that caught the moonlight, glowing with a soft, ethereal blue light. The train wound its way along the mountain ledges, passing through tunnels carved directly into the glowing crystal. Inside the tunnels, the carriage was illuminated by the warm, reflected blue light, creating a magical, dreamlike atmosphere. The little bear opened his eyes to watch the crystal walls pass by, marveling at the soft hum that the crystals emitted as the train passed. It was a low, resonant vibration, like the sound of a distant singing bowl, vibrating gently through the floorboards and into the seats. The train passed a small mountain village, where cozy wooden cabins were nestled in the snow, their chimneys sending curls of white smoke into the dark sky. Golden light shone from their windows, suggesting warmth and comfort inside. The contrast between the cold, snowy mountains outside and the warm, crackling fire inside the carriage made the little bear feel incredibly snug. Descending from the Crystal Pass, the train entered the Valley of Floating Lanterns. The valley was covered in a soft, low-lying mist that glowed with a warm, amber light. Thousands of paper lanterns, lit by tiny warm flames, floated lazily in the air, rising slowly from the valley floor toward the starry sky. They drifted past the train windows like miniature hot air balloons, casting a soft, flickering glow onto the little bear's face. He watched them with a quiet smile, fascinated by their slow, silent journey upward. The train traveled along a high stone viaduct that spanned the valley, offering a panoramic view of the floating lights. The sound of the train was a slow, steady echo against the stone arches of the viaduct, a deep and reassuring rhythm. The air was calm, and the lanterns floated in perfect stillness, undisturbed by the train's passage. The little bear leaned his cheek against the soft velvet of his seat, his eyes tracking a single gold lantern as it drifted close to his window before floating up to join the stars above. The warm, flickering light of the lantern seemed to dance in his eyes, slowly guiding him toward sleep. The viaduct led the train down to the quiet shore of Serenity, a place where a vast, glassy lake lay under a giant, silver crescent moon. The water was so still that it looked like a sheet of dark glass, reflecting the moon and stars with absolute clarity. The train track ran right along the shoreline, just inches from the water's edge. The wheels made a soft, wet sloshing sound against the gravel, a gentle and repetitive whisper that accompanied the click-clack of the tracks. The little bear watched the moon's reflection in the water, feeling as if the train were gliding along the edge of a giant mirror. A soft mist hung over the lake, partially obscuring the distant shore and creating a sense of infinite, peaceful space. Occasionally, a gentle ripple would disturb the reflection as a small pebble slipped into the water, but the lake quickly returned to its glassy state. The little bear felt his breathing synchronize with the slow, gentle rhythm of the train, rising and falling in quiet harmony. His eyes were half closed now, the silver moonlight bathing his compartment in a soft, cool glow that was deeply soothing. Finally, the train began to slow down, its engine emitting a long, soft sigh of steam. The tracks widened, and ahead stood the station of Slumber, the final destination of the Dreamland Express. The station was a cozy structure built of dark wood and covered in ivy, with warm golden light shining from its windows. The train glided slowly along the platform, the squeak of the brakes soft and muted. The little bear opened his eyes sleepily as the train came to a complete, gentle stop. The owl conductor walked down the corridor, softly announcing the arrival with a quiet, soothing voice. The little bear picked up his small satchel, adjusted his green scarf one last time, and stepped out of the carriage. The air on the platform was warm and filled with the scent of lavender and pine. A soft path of moss led away from the station toward a meadow of fluffy, cloud-like beds under a canopy of weeping willows. The little bear walked slowly down the path, his steps light and silent. He found a cozy bed waiting for him, climbed under the soft, warm blankets, and closed his eyes. The distant sound of the train's steam engine was a fading whisper, a gentle reminder that he was safe, warm, and finally asleep in the heart of Dreamland. The stars above the station of Slumber shone with a gentle, steady light, casting a protective glow over the sleeping valley. A soft breeze rustled the leaves of the weeping willows, sounding like a quiet sigh of relief at the end of a long journey. The little bear lay comfortably, his breathing deep and even, completely at peace. The Dreamland Express had delivered its passengers safely to the realm of sleep, and now, the train itself rested, its metal engine cooling in the night air, humming a faint, warm vibration that gradually faded into the quiet dark. The entire valley was silent, wrapped in a blanket of silver moonlight and soft, protective shadows. There were no thoughts of tomorrow, no memories of yesterday, only the perfect, peaceful present of a deep and restful sleep. The dream journey was complete, and the night was long and full of quiet wonders. As the stars kept watch, the little bear drifted deeper and deeper into his dreams, safe in the knowledge that the train would always be there to guide him back whenever he needed a peaceful journey through the starry night. The old wooden clock on the station wall ticked with a slow, heavy rhythm, each tick a gentle reminder of the passing night. The sound was soft, blending seamlessly with the whisper of the wind and the distant, fading murmur of the steam engine. The little bear snuggled deeper into his cloud-like bed, the soft fabric of his woolen vest and knitted scarf offering a comforting warmth. The air was cool against his nose, but the blankets were thick and cozy, keeping him perfectly warm. He felt as though he were floating on a soft cloud, drifting slowly across the stardust sea he had crossed hours before. The memories of the journey, the glowing crystals, the floating lanterns, the scent of lavender, swirled gently in his mind, transforming into beautiful, colorful dreams. The owl conductor sat quietly on a wooden post near the platform, his golden eyes watching over the sleeping station, a silent guardian of the night. The steam from the train had completely vanished, leaving only the clean, crisp air of the dream valley. In the distance, the gentle sound of a mountain waterfall could be heard, its soft rush resembling white noise that filled the quiet spaces of the valley. There was a constant, soothing hum, wrapping around the little bear like a protective shield against any waking worries. The willow branches swayed gently, brushing against the top of his cozy bed like soft fingers. He was so far away now, deep in the quietest corners of Dreamland, where the only movement was the slow rise and fall of his chest. The stars seemed to twinkle in slow motion, their silver light weaving through the leaves to paint soft patterns on the ground. The world was asleep, and everything was exactly as it should be. The journey was over, the destination reached, and the rest was deep, uninterrupted, and sweet. As the night deepened, the silver crescent moon climbed higher into the sky, casting a wider glow over the peaceful valley of sleep. The little bear did not stir, his dreams soft and light as feathers. The quiet hum of the crystal pass still echoed faintly in his ears, a comforting vibration that kept him grounded in his peaceful state. The scent of pine and lavender lingered in the air, a gentle reminder of the beautiful places he had traveled through. The train sat silently on the tracks, a dark silhouette against the starry sky, waiting for the next twilight to begin another journey. But for now, there was only silence, warmth, and the deep, healing rest of the night. The little bear was asleep, and the world was quiet. The soft moss beneath the bed seemed to absorb all sounds, leaving only the absolute quiet of the deep valley. The little bear's paw twitched slightly as he dreamed of flying through the stardust sea, but he remained deeply asleep, his face relaxed and peaceful. The knitted green scarf remained loosely wrapped around his neck, a comforting weight that made him feel secure. The night air grew slightly cooler, but the warmth of the bed was constant, a small island of comfort in the cool night. The owl conductor closed his eyes, his duties finished for the night, joining the rest of the valley in peaceful slumber. The stars continued their silent watch, shining down on the little bear, the train, and the beautiful, quiet world of Dreamland. Every train compartment had its own unique magic, but the one the little bear chose felt uniquely his. A warm, knitted blanket of deep green wool lay folded at the foot of the velvet bench, and a small wooden saucer holding a ceramic mug of warm, chamomile tea sweetened with lavender honey sat on the table. The steam rose from the mug in slow, lazy swirls, filling the compartment with its soothing scent. The little bear reached out with his soft paws, lifting the warm mug and taking a slow, gentle sip. The warmth traveled through him, relaxing his shoulders and calming his breath. Outside the window, the misty platform seemed to quiet even further, the wooden sign of the Station of Stars softly swaying in the night. The engine hummed a low, deep tone, a vibration that resonated through the floor and into the soles of his paws, like a gentle purr from a sleeping giant. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of the tea and the low vibration of the train center him in this quiet space. The rails click-clacked in a slow triple meter, a gentle waltz that rolled across the dark hills. The train passed a quiet meadow where fireflies blinked in rhythmic patterns, their tiny green lights mirroring the stars above. The little bear watched them, his eyelids growing heavier with each click-clack of the metal wheels. The compartment was so perfectly isolated from the rest of the universe, a cozy bubble of warmth and light moving steadily through the dark. He pulled his green scarf closer, burying his chin in its soft wool. The gentle sway of the carriage made him feel light, as if the train were not traveling on rails at all, but rather floating along a soft, warm current of air. The sound of the wind against the window pane was a soft, white noise, washing away any remaining chatter from the day, leaving only the peace of the present moment. In the forest of whispering pines, the train slowed down just a little, navigating a series of gentle curves that cradled the valley. The scent of wood smoke joined the aroma of pine, drifting from the small stove in the corner of the carriage. The crackle of the wood was dry and soft, like the sound of dry leaves stepping under a quiet foot. The little bear leaned his head against the glass, feeling the cool touch of the window pane contrast beautifully with the warm air of his compartment. Outside, the shadows of the tall pine trees stretched long and soft under the moonlight, moving in a slow, rhythmic dance as the train rolled past. A gentle owl flew alongside the carriage for a brief moment, its white wings silent in the night air, before it turned back into the safety of the dark forest. The little bear watched it go, feeling a deep sense of companionship with the quiet creatures of the night. The train emerged from the forest and began its long, smooth glide across the viaduct of the Sea of Stardust. The water below was so calm that the reflection of the stars did not shimmer, they simply shone like diamonds set in dark marble. The little bear looked down, feeling a pleasant sensation of floating, as if there were no ground beneath him, only the infinite velvet of the night sky. The soft hum of the wheels on the floating tracks was a gentle drone, a single, continuous note that hummed in the key of peace. The violet water seemed to glow from within, lighting up the bottom of the carriage with a soft, iridescent sheen. He watched the gentle rise and fall of the small waves, their movements so slow and deliberate that they seemed to be breathing in time with his own chest. As the train wound through the meadows of whispering lavender, the sound of the engine was almost entirely absorbed by the thick carpet of purple blossoms. The click-clack of the rails became a soft, distant heartbeat, muffled and comforting. The scent of lavender grew stronger, a thick, purple cloud of fragrance that seemed to slow down the passage of time itself. The little bear turned down the brass lamp on his table, leaving only the soft glow of the moon to light his compartment. The shadows of the lavender stems danced along the walls, moving in slow, rhythmic patterns that felt like a visual lullaby. He lay down on the long velvet seat, curling his tail around his toes and resting his head on his soft satchel. The scent of the lavender fields felt like a soft hand pressing gently against his forehead, cooling and calming his mind. Up in the Crystal Mountains, the train passed through a series of narrow arches where the crystal walls were so close they could almost be touched. The light from the train's glowing windows bounced off the crystal facets, creating hundreds of tiny rainbows that danced across the compartment ceiling. The little bear watched the colors shift from soft blue to pale violet, then to a warm, gentle rose. The low, musical hum of the crystals vibrated through the carriage, a resonant sound that felt like a warm massage for the mind. Outside, the snow fell in thick, silent flakes, draping the crystal peaks in a soft, white coat. The warmth of the crackling carriage fire felt even more precious now, a shield of cozy safety against the silent, frozen world outside. The train rolled slowly down the other side of the pass, entering the valley of floating lanterns. The thousands of amber lights drifted so closely to the train that they looked like floating candles warming the glass. The little bear watched their gentle, flickering glow, the warm amber light coloring his fur and the soft fabric of his traveler's cap. The viaduct was long and high, and looking down, the valley looked like a bowl of golden stardust. The slow, rhythmic echo of the train's engine against the stone viaduct was a deep, steady bass note that grounded the airy dance of the lanterns. It was a beautiful, silent spectacle, a dance of light and shadow that seemed to whisper of quiet dreams and peaceful rests. Along the shore of serenity, the giant crescent moon hung so low that it seemed to touch the water's surface, creating a long, silver path of light that stretched all the way to the train. The train rolled along this silver path, the wheels making a soft, rhythmic whisper as they brushed the waterlogged gravel. The little bear lay completely still, his eyes fixed on the silver light. The lake was a perfect mirror, and for a moment, it felt as though there were two trains, one traveling through the sky and one traveling through the water, both moving in perfect, silent harmony toward the same peaceful end. The mist on the lake was thin and silvery, drifting across the water like quiet spirits of the night. The engine's long, soft sigh signaled their arrival at the station of slumber. The steam rose in a gentle cloud, enveloping the train in a warm, white mist that smelled of cedar and lavender. The train came to a stop so gently that the little bear barely felt the transition from movement to rest. The wooden compartment door slid open with a soft, oiled click, and the owl conductor whispered a gentle farewell. The little bear stood up slowly, his limbs heavy and relaxed, and stepped out onto the soft mossy platform. The platform was silent, the golden lanterns casting long, warm shadows that seemed to invite him forward into the quiet night. He walked down the moss-covered path, the ground soft and yielding beneath his paws. The air was perfectly still, and the scent of damp earth and lavender was a soothing perfume that filled his senses. The cloud-like bed in the meadow of weeping willows was piled high with soft, woolen blankets and pillows filled with wild down. The little bear climbed into the bed, sinking into its plush warmth. He pulled the thick green blanket up to his chin, his green scarf nestled under his head like a soft pillow. The leaves of the weeping willows rustled gently in the night wind, a sound like soft waves washing onto a sandy beach. He closed his eyes, letting himself sink deeper and deeper into the warm, comforting darkness. The Dreamland Express sat quiet on the platform, its brass and iron cooling in the night air, its journey done. The stars above shone with a steady, quiet brilliance, watching over the little bear as he slept. The Valley of Slumber was a place of absolute peace, where no worries could enter and only soft, beautiful dreams were allowed. The rhythmic sound of the waterfall in the distance was a continuous lullaby, a constant hum of peace that filled the night. The little bear was safe, warm, and resting deeply, his mind filled with the gentle images of his journey, the stars, the forest, the stardust sea, the lavender fields, the crystal mountains, the floating lanterns, and the quiet lake. He was asleep, and the world was at peace. Every evening, the journey begins the same way. The little bear packs his tiny satchel, placing a notebook of dreams inside, and wraps his favorite green scarf twice around his neck. The wool is soft and has a faint scent of chamomile. He walks down the winding garden path of his waking home, leaving the thoughts of the day behind. The path is quiet, lined with bluebells that sleepily hang their heads. The air is cool, and the twilight is a gentle curtain falling over the landscape. He walks toward the edge of the forest where the Station of Stars sits, a small wooden building with a shingled roof that sparkles under the first evening stars. The station is always quiet, empty of the hustle and bustle of daytime travel. There are only a few quiet travelers, each seeking the same peaceful destination. When the train arrives, its giant black engine looks powerful yet gentle. The steam it releases is not loud or harsh, but rather a soft, continuous sigh that warms the cool platform. The little bear watches the passenger cars, their wood painted a deep, dark green that matches the surrounding pines. Each car has large, arched windows framed in polished brass. The light from inside is a warm, inviting amber, calling him to leave the cold night behind. The steps of the carriage are solid and welcoming, and as he steps inside, the thick carpet underfoot muffles his footsteps. The air is filled with the scent of cedar wood, lavender, and warm tea. The carriage is a sanctuary, a safe place where the noise of the world cannot reach him. Inside his compartment, the little bear slides the door shut, locking out the rest of the world. The room is tiny but perfectly arranged. A long, plush bench covered in deep green velvet sits on one side, and a small table sits beneath the window. A brass lamp is fixed to the wall, its shade softening the bulb's light into a warm, golden glow. A thick green woolen blanket is folded neatly on the bench, waiting to keep him warm. He settles onto the seat, letting the soft velvet support him. He places his satchel on the floorboards, feeling the first gentle vibrations of the train engine as it begins to warm up. The sound is a low, comforting hum that seems to calm his heart. Outside the window, the station begins to slide backward. The transition is so smooth that it feels as if the station itself is moving, drifting away into the twilight. The train climbs slowly, the engine working with a steady, rhythmic chug that sounds like a heartbeat. The little bear watches the lights of the town fade in the distance, tiny sparks of gold disappearing into the indigo evening. The mist rises from the valleys, wrapping the hills in a soft, protective blanket. The air inside is perfectly warm, and he feels a deep sense of relief. The waking world is fading, and the realm of dreams is beginning to open up before him. The train enters the forest of whispering pines, and the light inside the compartment feels even cozier against the dark woods outside. The tall pines stand close to the tracks, their branches brushing against the top of the carriage with a soft, sweeping sound. The headlight of the engine cuts through the darkness, illuminating the mossy trunks and the ferns that cover the forest floor. The air that drifts through the ventilation is crisp and clean, smelling of pine needles, damp earth, and wood smoke. The little bear leans his head against the window frame, watching the shadows dance among the trees. The world outside is a silent, dark forest, but inside, he is wrapped in warmth and light, completely safe. As the train crosses the sea of stardust, the wheels make a different sound, a softer, hollow thrumming that echoes over the water. The track is built on low stone arches that seem to sit right on the water's surface. The lake is vast and perfectly still, its deep violet water reflecting the night sky so clearly that the train seems to be floating through space. The little bear looks down and sees the constellations mirrored in the dark water, looking like glowing cities beneath the surface. The silver moonlight washes over his compartment, turning the green velvet seats into a pale, glowing emerald. He feels a wonderful sense of weightlessness, as if the train were drifting on a cloud of stardust, carrying him gently away from the earth. The meadows of lavender appear as a soft purple sea under the crescent moon. The train travels slowly through the rolling hills, the track cutting a path through the fragrant blossoms. The scent of lavender is thick and sweet, drifting through the carriage and filling his compartment. It is a powerful, relaxing aroma that reaches deep into his mind, telling him that it is safe to rest. The little bear watches the gentle curves of the hills, the purple flowers swaying in the warm night breeze. The engine's headlight reveals path after path of soft, winding trails, and in the distance, a group of wild rabbits sits quietly, watching the train pass with sleepy eyes. The world is soft, purple, and silent, a quiet dreamscape that stretches to the horizon. High in the crystal mountains, the train winds along narrow ledges, the glowing blue crystal walls of the tunnels casting a magical light onto his face. The snow falls in large, lazy flakes, dusting the pine trees and the crystal peaks in soft white. The little bear opens his eyes to watch the shifting colors of the crystal, the light turning from deep blue to soft violet, then to a warm, gentle rose. The crystals emit a low, musical hum that vibrates through the train, a sound that feels like a physical lullaby, soothing his muscles and calming his thoughts. The contrast between the cold, snowy peaks and the warm, crackling fire in the carriage hearth makes him feel incredibly snug and protected. The train descends into the valley of floating lanterns, where the air is warm and filled with thousands of glowing paper lights. They float slowly upward, rising from the valley floor like warm, gold bubbles rising in water. The viaduct is high, and looking down, the valley is a sea of amber light. The train rolls slowly, its engine making a deep, reassuring echo against the stone arches of the viaduct. The little bear presses his face against the window, watching the lanterns float past, their soft flames flickering in the dark. The light is warm and golden, dancing across his room and painting soft shadows on the ceiling. It is a silent, beautiful dance that makes him feel peaceful and content. Along the shore of serenity, the giant crescent moon is reflected in the glassy water, creating a long, silver road of light that the train seems to follow. The wheels whisper against the wet gravel, a soft, rhythmic shush-shush sound that matches his slow breathing. The mist hangs low over the lake, hiding the distant hills and creating a sense of infinite, quiet space. The little bear lies down on the bench, pulling the green woolen blanket up to his chin. The silver moonlight bathes his room in a soft, cool glow, and he feels completely at peace. The journey is almost over, and the destination is near. When the train stops at the station of slumber, the transition is silent and gentle. The engine releases a final, soft sigh of steam, and the wheels come to rest. The station is a cozy wooden building covered in ivy, with warm light shining from its windows. The little bear steps onto the mossy platform, his steps silent and light. The air is warm and smells of lavender. He follows the soft mossy path to a meadow where cloud-like beds are nestled under the weeping willows. He climbs into one of the beds, sinking into the soft blankets. The distant sound of the waterfall is a gentle hum, and the stars shine down with a steady, protective light. He closes his eyes and drifts into a deep, peaceful sleep. The Dreamland Express sits quietly on the tracks, its journey completed. Its metal engine cools in the night air, humming a faint, warm vibration that slowly disappears into the quiet dark. The entire valley is silent, wrapped in a blanket of silver moonlight and soft, protective shadows. The little bear is safe, warm, and resting deeply, his mind filled with the gentle images of his journey. The night is long, and the rest is sweet. The stars keep watch over the sleeping valley, their light a gentle reassurance that all is well. The dream journey is over, and the night is peaceful and still.